very good morning to my guest, Uday. Welcome to the show and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Nice to be back again.
Uh, you have been provoking me very well in the last couple of days when I have been thinking of what kind of material could be even more useful than just having a basic intent to serve. How can we make it more uh, accessible to a lot more people? Funnily enough, that's also the season of reflection in my own personal journey, in my professional journey. So it kind of matches the mood of the moment. Uh, and in tune with that, since the morning, there is one word that I'm visiting and revisiting again and again, instinct. And I realized that this word is no longer what it used to be. And just before we were setting up, I was trying to see what could we do with the word instinct, and it threw up three words in some piece which spoke about belief, fear, and aggression. And the piece was called the unholy trinity. Unfortunately, I couldn't finish it. I just liked the provocation that came up uh, because belief very often is seen as positive, and fear and aggression are seen as negative. But when it called this whole trinity as unholy, I realized belief may not be the holy cow that I was thinking it is. And my personal take on belief itself to start the conversation, there is a term called blind belief that a lot of people scoff at. And I have this very deep inner feeling of if belief is not blind, it is not belief at all. And I personally have gained a lot from this sense of trust because it makes me believe in the benevolence of the world, the universe, my experiences. Uh, and yet there are times when I'm disappointed by things the way they happen, and I accept the disappointment as the gift of the moment as well. So it's not that I'm very choosy about it. I mean, obviously there's nothing to like about disappointment, and yet it's okay. This is how things are, and I try and make my peace with it. Uh, so my first provocation to you, or as one of my other favorite guests, Hemant Gupta calls it, invocation. Uh, what do you have to say about belief before we get into the other parts of the Trinity?
I think instinct is something that we need to understand. Mhm. So, in today's environment, uh, what is it that are shaping our instincts? So, if that unholy trinity of belief, fear, and aggression. So, somewhere our beliefs have changed a lot in the past, say, decade or two. So, when we were children to when you're growing up to now, uh, you might have realized correctly or wrongly that maybe service doesn't get you what you want in the society. Maybe I should be more self-centered. So, so your blind belief serves you if that belief took you along the direction of maybe some happiness or peace or security. And for someone else, that belief could have taken them in some other direction. And blindly following that direction might have caused them to revisit their assumptions, whether they even the beliefs were right in the first place. They just took something that were handed down from the previous generation or from circumstances. Uh, so blind belief in that sense mm, may not always serve you well if you're not willing to critically look at it when opposite information is presented to you. So, and many people may not have the luxury of revisiting their beliefs simply because of their circumstances. So, if you're, say, in the armed forces, you can't have different beliefs to then what your mission requires you to have. So, if similarly in many circumstances you have a duty and a responsibility you have to fulfill, giving that up one when you're in the midst of it may not be that easy. You may still have your beliefs revised. You may not have that same uh, clarity or that oneness of that whole path when counter information starts coming in. But still, you still have to complete your duties and responsibilities because you made a certain decision. So I feel that is where a lot of our beliefs blinded or revised with experience and wisdom shapes us.
Uh, I'm going to a absolute other end of the spectrum because of what you just said. Because when you were describing something, the word doubt entered my mind, and there is this beautiful Zen saying about with great doubt comes great certainty. Uh, but it's overwhelming. The word great doubt itself, when I think of it, is uh, what do you have to say about the role of doubt to counter the quote unquote unholy trinity? We just continue the description because we don't have a better one right now. What is the role of doubt in one's life?
I think the reason why doubt is scary is because we work from a place of certainty. Like if I had to say go to my schooling days, so there should be that certainty that if I do well, then I'll go to the next grade, and then I'll do this and I'll do that. When that certainty is disturbed by an opposite piece of information, with somebody who has not done schooling the way I have done, or they've not excelled at school but still did well in something else, that is another piece of information which we did not have when we created this certainty about a certain belief, right? So I think doubt is very useful. At least one should always have that uh, in the back of your mind, saying this is what I am thinking right now, but it might be wrong as well. And if it is wrong, then you at least gave yourself that uh, option that there are things that you may not know, but you're still making a decision. And if it didn't work out, then that means there is that space for doubt that yes, I did not have all my beliefs or whatever I was working on weren't completely true. They were partially true. Uh, so doubt there is very useful. Without doubt, I think you can uh, just be obstinate and stubborn about what you're doing because you want to have that security that certainty provides. And when
Okay.
there is no certainty, then how can you pursue that? Let's say in your career or life, or if certainty is not there, then what are we trying to hold on to so strongly that this is how it has to be, but maybe it shouldn't be like that, right? So
Okay. Uh, if I were to define a mix rather than asking you a question, you can respond to that. So I'm talking only from my perspective as of right now, which is limited to my own experience and my own limited understanding of my own experience as well. So, if one were to combine blind belief, which is what I was supporting in the first place, and have reasonable doubt, uh, which is checking the blind belief and changing it as we go along, it also seems to have an impact on the fear and aggression bits because doubt, fear, and aggression are not the same thing. If there is an openness to doubting oneself without being paralyzed by the doubt itself, then I find that the fear of the unknown, which is the uncertain as you've described it as of right now, or my aggression, which is again, fear and aggression to me are similar. It's just two sides of the coin. I'm aggressive at times because I want to believe very strongly, even when the information suggests otherwise, or else uh, I am not comfortable in the certainty yet, so I am trying to quell the certainty by being aggressive and loud and rude and boorish, whatever. Um, Does this work this way for you?
Yes, aggression stems from the fact that I want to hold on to something which is being taken away or which is being threatened. And
Okay.
once that sense of loss or possible loss enters the thought process, then fear arises, and then you want to somehow prevent this from happening. Doubt in that way helps you to actually counter that. I feel it helps you to handle that fear much before it arises, that or that maybe this thing can go wrong, right? Then obviously when you doubt, there'll be a certain fear that comes up with that. That okay, so I'm saying I'm going to put this much of effort or this much of money or this much of time, and it might not work out. Are you okay with it? And if you're okay with it, then at least somewhere that acceptance of an alternative reality uh, is there. But if I don't doubt and I'm super certain, then whenever uh, you know the opposite happens to what I want, then you're going to have a lot of fear. And whenever that thing passes, like whenever thing is taken away, then there will be a huge amount of doubt that comes in because the amount of certainty you had before is now completely taken away, right? So now then you just have this huge doubt that comes into your mind. If all this I was basing on something that was wrong because it didn't work out, then what next will be replaced is just doubt. So
So doubt is a friend if we gradually develop it as part of our mental upbringing, if I were to call the process that for now. Uh, how does how does one make peace with that discomfort that comes during that time? While you've said very calmly that one has to use doubt in the way that you mentioned, but if we were to take a step back and when it is big in my mind, so when I'm talking to you, suppose I'm doubtful about uh, not preparing for this podcast, uh, not trusting my own knowledge or understanding vis-a-vis our conversation, uh, then it tends to uh, strangle me of sorts. It becomes like a crippling feeling that what am I going to do? The camera is on, the people are going to judge that I'm not as good as I claim or not as intelligent as I think. I'm not coming across as wise, or maybe I'm hiding something. Maybe I know these things. Maybe I don't know these things. So it's not a very good feeling to have all these thoughts. Uh, neither is it happening. Neither is it reflecting well on my quote unquote performance on the camera. Now all of these things become a jumble. Where does clarity about doubt itself and its impact on me come from? Can you guide us through the inner process of the thing?
so I mean, let's take a simpler example, like for example, or even this, if and I'm facing a lot of students who are preparing a lot and they're crashing in the mock tests or in the examination hall. They just, not completing the exam itself,
Okay.
or they're not showing up to the hall. So mm, where if you're not studying, if you're not preparing, then obviously you have given that amount of input to your mind that I'm not even prepared for this task. The chance of failure is high unless I'm a natural at it and I've been at it for 10, 15, 20 years. Then maybe without preparation I can manage one or two sessions of whatever you're doing, right? But if your preparation is going on strong, you're working hard, and still doubt is there, but that means things could go wrong. Then you have to tell yourself, yes, I'm doing the best I can, and things could go wrong, but at least let me give it all I have. And what many people have seen over the years, many experts, is that this all that a person can give is way more than what they're doing right now. They're probably using just 10% of their ability. So if you up that to 20, 30% of your ability, you achieve most of the ordinary things that you are aspiring. So with all of that, if you still have doubt, like let's say you've done your best, you've given 100% of your efforts, and still at that moment you have doubt, then you just be with the action at that moment. So if you're playing a sport, you're completely present with that activity. If you're talking on camera, then you're just there with that activity, not looking to judge or second guess yourself whether you're doing it right or wrong. You just be present with the activity, then the mind doesn't have space to, encourage that doubt to come. But then without preparation, without effort, if you're expecting that you'll have that confidence or certainty, then that won't happen.
Uh, so one starts presuming that there will be obstacles on the path even before one has begun. And then certain obstacles that are reasonably expected to come up, you can prepare whatever you can prepare. Some of them you are unable to prepare. Like, let's continue the example. Uh, so when I was giving my Bachelor of Arts degree, I was doing so I had done a engineering diploma before that and lost a good job opportunity uh, due to not having a graduation. So I decided to opt for an arts degree. That was the simplest for me. But it was long distance. So in that sense, I used to study from home and just have time because I was also working to just go and take a break for 20 days, give my exams and finish it. So I needed something that kept me on with the subject throughout the time. So I used to read it like I'm reading an entertainment book or a magazine. I used to just take the book and in the train or the bus, I just used to keep on reading it and write some funny notes. Oh, I love this. I would circle this. I love this. This is easy. This is absolutely idiotic. You are never going to get this in your life. So I would actually write a note like that. This is very troublesome. You will not get time. You will not be able to solve this. This is fairly easy. One glance and you will know what it is. So by the time I came back to the subject, say 1 month prior to my exam, I knew which parts I was very good at, which parts were this, and which parts I was not very good at, and that became a choice that I could either go down that route in case I thought that was important and I needed to uh, go through it. But accordingly, I could break my attention into the easy went last so that it's very easy that I don't have to bother. The middle ground was the time that I spent the most on to try to make it into the easy bracket. And the difficult ones, some of them I chose to absolutely skip because I used to give it a reading, and if my initial instinct about it was right, I used to let it go. Or else I felt there were certain parts that were easy within the whole thing, and I would mark those and say, okay, I'll just try and remember these 5 points, engage with them, and figure out if I can build a logical answer out of it. So coming back to what you're saying, uh, clarity comes from practice and effort. Uh, so one spanner in the works here. Even before I begin, suppose there is absolutely zero clarity about the path, what I'm doing, uh, how to go about it, then becomes a later question. How do you solve that part? Suppose I'm beginning on a journey, any journey which is absolutely blind and I have no clue what it entails. So, for example, school to college is that jump. It's because other people tell you, okay, you will get more free periods, you can go and spend time in the canteen, all of that happens. But if I remember correctly, my first few days were, I was very tentative about everything because for the first time I had freedom to do what I wanted. But now that freedom also became responsibility, if I'm bunking this session and the teacher caught me or something happened, I had to figure out a way to deal with it. There was no parent coming and there was no such thing where you were being handheld through the problem. Now, in that case, how do you bring clarity in your life?
So before you start any journey, I think again the onus is on you to find out whether it's something you want to undertake. So let us say you started college in a certain subject. Why did you choose the subject? Were you even interested in it, or was it just peer pressure or society or parents that wanted you to do it? Sometimes you can switch subjects and do reasonably well. Sometimes you cannot. It's just not your cup of tea. It's not your strong point. That time it's better to assess and take the difficult decision to quit rather than just pursuing that path full of doubt, full of anxiety, just to complete it to satisfy somebody, right? Uh, Regarding the unknown, yes, that it will always be an unknown, because when you are in school and you go to college, that jump is so high and in such a different atmosphere that you will face challenges like adapting to it. However, if during school, if you were made more self-reliant, my sense is you would be the transition would be easier. So this is where guidance comes in from your teachers or parents. Ki if they're always trying to push a schedule on you or push you to study, then they also know that after school they can't do it anymore. You need to be self-driven to do it. So that is something that we all need to figure out. Even when you go to corporate, you realize nobody's going to tell you what to learn, when to show up to office, how to deliver, how to conduct yourself in meetings. There's no coaching around for that. You will have to learn some of it as you're going on the journey, and some you can prepare ahead of time if you really had the inclination to do so.
In
The
this, sorry.
more critical aspect I found is like I said, cases where people just freeze, right? It's a big exam, NEET is there, I think today afternoon. There are people who are just going to freeze during the examination, right? Like those aspects of your subject where you felt they are difficult. And that was supposed to be only 10% of your paper. If that becomes 30 or 40% of your paper, right? Mentally, you're already in that zone that, oh, this is not supposed to be uh, taking up so much of my paper right now. And at that point in time, you need to accept it. Yes, now you know what, 30% is coming from a section which I am not at all comfortable, and I just have to do the best I can here. Quitting is just handing over 30% to the opposition. So you might as well just complete the paper, do your best, and leave it. And so that amount of flexibility should be there in mind. I feel doubt gives you that flexibility. That past 10 years, papers have been a certain way, but it's possible this is the 11th year and it might be completely different, and I should be ready to go through it.
So, good that you brought it up. So, I lost my earlier question that I had for you. This brings up an observation. So, there was indeed one exam where this had happened to me. I realized that I had 100% choice. So, there were 8 questions. I had to answer any four. Uh, I knew only one question for sure in terms of my ability to say that I had covered that ground. Now, suddenly, when you realize that the three-fourth is not in your control and you have no idea, uh, I broke it down and went for the first question, played my best shot first. That I know this question and I'll give a wonderful answer to this. Once I finished that, I sat down. I realized after some thinking that I knew some part of another question, some part which was not directly related, but I could build a story in my answer and come close to what might be a probable answer. So I built that up. And the other two, I landed up writing whatever came to mind because I had absolutely no clue what that was. And I did score reasonably well in just those two answers, being very sure. I realized the ability to stay calm did not come from my staying calm suddenly. I had worked a lot for the subject. My choices would have been wrong in terms of the part of the subject that I may have ignored, but it wasn't lack of effort on my part. it was it was a gamble I played knowingly that I had so much time. I was working and this was for my master's actually. My BA went wonderfully well. When I did my master's, this question paper came at that point to me. And I realized you still need to be calm. There are things you know, and there are things you might know, and there are things you absolutely have no clue. So you got to break it down again, come to that clarity. Okay, this is how I'm going to approach it. This brings me to the question I was thinking, and it's directly connected to the point I was making was with this, whatever we've spoken so far about blind belief, about fear, about aggression, about the element of doubt and how to harness it to our advantage. How does instinct in today's time work, according to you? If all of these elements that we spoke of in various ways have to be taken into consideration, because these are real life examples that you and I are talking of, including the exam ideas and examples that you shared. The state of mind that you're sharing is not new to me. I'm sure it's not new to many of us. Now, in this challenging atmosphere, instinct, which is fragile at times, how does that get honed? Does it exist anymore? What is a better way to read it? Or is it just a figment of imagination?
I think instinct is driven by our need for survival. I mean, that is the basic instinct that every being has. And if you look at India today to say 20 years ago, 30 years ago, survival for most of the people wasn't an issue or shouldn't be an issue today. But with the way society has evolved and how social communities and structures have slowly, dissipated, the instinct today is to be more fearful and much more self-centered than it was 20, 30 years ago when we had less economic wealth among people. So even though there are more colleges today, there's supposed to be more jobs. Students are even more stressed today than they were many years ago. So instinct-wise, that's what is being honed. Now, what changes is that because of some of the beliefs of past couple of decades have been completely upturned because of the way the job market works, mm, the excess of information we have about government or society. We realize a lot of those beliefs were not really, core beliefs. They were just supported by circumstances because we were all poor or we did not have a lot of money. There was a lot more social cohesion in society among people. There were less media channels, so you were not influenced by so many channels anymore. Right? So today you have the choice to look back and look at the present, say, okay, what is the kind of life I want for my future? That's an individual choice, and that is going to shape your instinct. So if you are going to go to that part of life or society which is not there with you, it requires you to triple or quadruple your income to just get there, then that is what is going to drive your instinct. So those are choices that people are making, right? Some people are downsizing to a smaller home or going to a tier 2 city or completely changing their profession. So those will then guide your beliefs and instincts and decisions. So I think that is something that each one today has as a choice, is how is it that you're going to live daily, and that is going to shape your future.
So intent is most important in shaping uh, this entire thing we call life then, because everything else will then start building up from there. So if I intend to be very successful in a certain parameter of life, say I want a luxurious life, nothing wrong with it, but then that will come with its own uh, demands, pressures, and I will have doubts regarding that. My fears will be driven by that. Uh, my successes will be defined by that. My own mental makeup of how my life is faring in that moment will be happening by that. So, are you saying literally everything in my life is going to be defined by intent? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And
And whether you know the consequences of your intent or not, sort of is immaterial. So, for example, you worked in an ad agency, somebody in Bombay has a film industry. If you just go and visit people who work there and just be a fly on the wall in these industries, you will see how people interact, how they are shaped, what influences their life. To think that you would go into such system like that and do something completely different or it won't affect you, um, is a less probabilities. There's a 10% chance you can do something completely different and be not affected by the fame or the pressure or the lifestyle. The chances are that you will be. So as you go forward, maybe initially you don't have much of a choice in what you do. Like you graduate the BA in arts and you're creative, you join an ad agency. But somewhere down the line, you can start seeing how it is affecting you and make certain choices. So that's what I would say for anybody, especially who's young, or even those who are much older but still want to consider other professions, okay, choices and careers, or even life paths. Put some effort to find out what it is to be in that particular role or in that particular atmosphere, because that is what is going to shape you. And why were you drawn to this particular thing? Because there was some intention behind you, that something there was giving you satisfaction or you know, a way out.
uh, in terms of what you've answered is fairly rational. Uh, a presumption that one would easily make is that our instinct is an emotional response to certain things. Uh, you've broken it down nicely, and there is nothing in your logic that I can actually have any kind of conflict with, uh, even at a very base level. But having said that, it's a rational breakdown of something that happens. How do you counter the emotional part of it? Because sometimes I may not understand my decision. I may be driven by, I felt like it is a thing that one hears very often. How do you be clear in that kind of position where emotion is just in the moment, uh, seems agreeable to me?
I think we all make decisions like that for the most part. Mm. But when you are making those decisions, I think as you see whether it really aligns with your talents or skills, mm, you will realize some things they may look good, but you're not really aligned with that. And there are other things which are aligned, but you need to put a lot more effort to make up, you know, a pathway into it. So I think those things will definitely be there. But once or twice, once you made those emotional decisions, you will look at the results of them, and that will drive you in the future. So as a youngster, maybe the film world or the sports world or advertising or big four accounting firms, they may be attractive, but I think a couple of years into that path, you will realize whether it really aligns with what you want to do or not. Uh, I think that amount of reflection isn't required because, yes, we'll make emotional decisions, but at some place, we'll let the emotions die down, calm down a little bit. And we can assess, okay, is this really something I want to do?
What about this? Whatever you propose now in an emotional place, like a relationship or family relationships or friendships or habit patterns, which could be as simple as that I love eating out, so 5 times a week I'm eating out. Once or twice I have food at my home. Anything of that sort. which is more emotional and which is more uh, in an intimate space, whether it is about me, about my immediate circle, family or friends, or my relationships if they are special, or any such thing. How do you see that?
I think in relationships, one has to clearly see how it is affecting you as an individual. How it is affecting others, yes, you might feel that they are enjoying it, but how is it affecting you as an individual? So some relationships will take such a amount of emotional energy out of you that you can't keep giving it after a point of time. So you need to then set boundaries. See how much can I actually mentally engage with it, and how much am I going to, you know, let things play out the way they have to. About the eating 5 times in a week outside, how does it affect your family time when you sit and eat together? How does it affect your health? So many things are there that goes on with even a decision on morning walk versus going to the gym, or eating out versus eating at home. I think these things you'll start seeing how it is affecting you, and in turn, how is it affecting people around you. I think there you'll be able to make those decisions. I think the hard part is actually cutting off a relationship. I think that is the hard part where you invested so much, that sunk cost, right? You put so much of it that leaving it doesn't seem um, comfortable, and there was so much certainty entering into it that now that the fact that it is not worth putting any more effort, handling that is going to be a difficult thing.
So, funnily enough, though you ended on a negative note, if by normal perception, I find that there is an underlying, uh, one could call it caution also, but a sense of responsibility to everything, starting with intent, uh, how you handle your own doubt, your fears, your aggression, if that is the expression that comes up very often for you, uh, your dealing with uncertainty of a personal or a professional kind, and your ability to be clear about the impact of your own choices on your life vis-a-vis, or rather including the impact on other lives around you, as well as all of that feeding back into your world and creating a new, if I were to call it, chaos or mess, if it is not understood properly. Because one can, you did mention somewhere in a line that even if you don't know how your intent works and makes you reach there, it still will work on you. That will not, just that you don't know doesn't absolve you of the responsibility. Uh, I'm just adding words to it, but that's what it meant to me. So, are you saying that one can actually live a very good life if one is mindful of all these elements and how they interact and they bring to me my instinct back to me, and I can hone it better by making better choices, spending more time studying myself in a manner which is perhaps non-judgmental in the short term for sure, allowing these uh, various influences to lead wherever they do, even if it's a place of doubt or fear, and just staying with it for a while for any wisdom to crop up. Is that a possibility?
Yes, I think that's a possibility, and also that uh, knowing that most of the things that you're involved in, they started off at certain point in time, and they'll end at a certain point in time. When that ending is, we don't know really, but it's not that something that's going to last forever. So that sort of impermanence of these events, whether it's school, college, relationships, work, health, it makes you realize, okay, this is not something that I should constantly be worried for eternity. Right? It's going to end sometime, whatever it is, year, 2 years, month, few years, whatever it is. One keeps that always in in perspective. So what that does, it makes you even more engaged with the situation completely, because you know it is going to end shortly. So you give your best and then you let go of it.
Is this an automatic realization, or is it a difficult to come to conclusion?
I think it's a difficult conclusion if we have not faced it enough in life, right?
Oh,
If you have been solely focused on yourself and you've not really engaged with circus systems outside of your own immediate need, then this ending of things might not be very apparent to you. Okay, so school friend parted, big deal. College friends parted, big deal. I shifted an office, big deal, right? Because you're always doing it purely from your perspective. That this is what I want from it. I got it, and there, the fall will be much harder, because when something very dear to you leaves, then you will realize, oh, so all these things were also equally important, uh, but I didn't really care for them. So when you find people who have achieved a lot of professional success or personal success but they're very extremely lonely, don't have any true friend. There were people all around, but you never really cared to value those relationships. So uh, that is that's going to be a hard thing for a person who's extremely self-centered. But for people who are even a little engaged with their family, the society, and they have some interests outside, eventually they will realize these things as they go along. That even something very good, very nice, something that was very precious, mm, it ended when it had to end. So you have to always keep that in mind, that whatever we are doing, even if it's something that gives us a lot of meaning, happiness, it's going to end sometime. So don't take it for granted.
is this the ultimate wisdom that one needs to work with different patterns and different philosophies and different engagements, different belief systems? Because there is a lot of I am right and you are wrong version out there in the world. You did qualify in this answer that if you're self-centered, then you will not be able to see self-centered in obviously a negative way. There can be a different look at that term itself. But I'm saying in terms of generic understanding of that term, if one is very involved with only oneself most of the time, one does not see what is happening in the rest of things around us. Is that the ultimate way to go around breaking this thing, where we see a pattern in life itself rather than uh, I do not know if there is a perspective that is not mine. There will always be some element of me in every perspective that I have. But whatever level of detachment is possible in terms of having a universal perspective and allowing it to rest for long enough, a month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year, couple of years, to see if it really works the way I have been seeing it work, or maybe there is a course correction needed. Then automatically my intent, my positives and my negatives, all of them start following that pattern where I am. It's a realization rather than just empty words and borrowed knowledge from books or audios or videos or some stuff like that. Uh, is that what you're saying? The constant sense of now I have a new term coming up, but say belief and skepticism. If they work together throughout, uh, would that be a good way to look at this entire discussion on instinct?
Yes, belief, skepticism, and acceptance. I think
Ah,
when we are going through society, you generally how we live is that I've done all these things right, and so this is where I am, and this other person, he or she, her life is not as valuable or as successful as mine or somebody else's, right? But if you remove that whole framework and just see this person who is, selling vada pav on the station, or this other farmer who is growing cotton in Vidarbha, or where their lives are equally truthful and meaningful from where they are living, from the point of view of their life. So it doesn't make any one particular way of life superior than the other. So, and if you look at even these elements we call antisocial elements, the gangsters, the people on the underworld, if you look at their formative years and what circumstances shaped them, you will be hard pressed to find why you wouldn't have been something like that. Right. So, and if they were not required in society, if they were not used by the elements in power, then they also wouldn't thrive or reach the level of notoriety that they have reached. So somewhere you develop a much more broader perspective of how this entire uh, you know scheme is working out in society and in the world. So you may have judgments, but still one should also see that the other person's life is been shaped by certain circumstances and events and thought processes. That once you put yourself in their shoes, you can understand why something like that has happened. So recently I went to a jail and I met a few people who are under trials. They're in for murder. None of them intended to actually commit the murder. Hardly anyone there who pre-planned it. In that fit of rage, they had a heavy instrument and hit the other person on the head. Invariably. And the head being such a delicate, region of the body, the person passed away. So one can, judge them as criminals, but when you listen to what actually happened, any one of us could be in that circumstance, coming from that background. And, so this acceptance will give you a lot more ease into living and making decisions that it's okay even if you don't achieve the best of the best or live the best of the best life. If there is some meaning to what you're doing, I think that's a good one.
I just realized while you were answering with the trinity that you created out of the belief, skepticism, and acceptance. We started with a possible chance of looking at an unholy trinity. This sign seems to be kind of a holy trinity that one can look at and maybe create a better life for oneself. This has been an amazing chat on so many fronts because it has dissected things that I did not think we would get into on a topic which was based on instinct. I was more concerned when I started. There were certain ideas. Okay, it will be more of how instinct shapes humanity, but the layers of thought that you have helped us understand are surely a good guideline to relook at one's own perspective, even if they are not cast in stone. Okay, this is how it ought to be. Even if they don't have to be, they could be wrong, but at least one can relook and redefine and reframe one's own perspective, looking at the possibilities of various points of view. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Thank you very much. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.